Okay, our plan is shot. It's a horrible plan. That damn squid thing popped out of my shower head and stole my shampoo. Weird question though, why do we have personal showers? Most Space Marine ships have communal showers, even in the serfs districts.
Look, we have a lot of black shields. Some of us are mutated to some degree, though we do tend to not care. Ezra isn't smart enough to figure out why I have an extra finger that keeps regrowing.
Wait, your finger regrows? Wait, you have an extra finger? Wait, why am I surprised? I wrote your entire existence. I know this shit.
Either way, we've still got an unholy monster going through the ship. We thought it was going through the ventilation, but it apparently has gotten in the plumbing too, huh?
Yeah, apparently, and I ain't got any idea how to possibly deal with this thing. What do? Poison our water supply? That would slaughter every serf, and even sicken some of the Astartes. Hell, servitors might not even be safe.
Yeah, it's obviously a bad idea. The best answer I have is to starve it out, but that's a lot harder than you'd think, given even we need to eat and drink. Of course, we could set a trap, but I don't know what it wants.
Well, we know it grabs soap. And Darren? We could use him as bait.
I swear by all that is holy, if you use me as bait,
we'll give you a devil's food cake.
I'm in.
Damn straight, but let's look into some Warhammer Wednesday stuff. I've been learning the Age of Sigmar system, and through it I've been trying to learn the setting too. That's a much slower process because the Age of Sigmar setting is relatively new, and I'd need to go into the fantasy setting and kind of the Blood Bowl setting just to learn it enough. But with the game, it's pretty much a simplified version of Warhammer 40,000 with some renames. Let's talk about the changes. First change from 40k to AOS is the regiment system. From what I understand, regiments are kind of like attached units, except they aren't attached. They're placed together but do not need to stick together. And it's not limited to one character and one unit. I mean, it is one character marked as a, quote, hero unit, but it looks like you can have 3 units that share at least some keywords with the hero. I think it's like Death Rattle or Deadwalker units and my Soulblight Gravelords. Essentially sub-factions, or I guess sub-factions? Of course, this applies to army creation, and there's another change to notice. Terrain can actually give certain buffs to your own army as well. For example, my faction terrain for my vampires is the Cursed Sepulchre, and it'll be placed before the deployment starts. This thing will also give buffs to my men, including giving my wizards, we'll get into those, a larger range to summon from. And the terrain will heal itself if my undead are near it. It also gives cover and can't be walked through, but those are really only applied to shooting, which is another thing we'll go into. Now, the last thing we need to point out is this stupid ass thing. You know what this is? This is essentially AOS's equivalent to mission decks from 40k. They come out with a new one every year. You could roll a die and look up what the mission deck does in 40k, but for this you need the book for the app to work right and allow you to build an army with the current rules. This damn General's Handbook also costs 60 USD. It's a ridiculous price in a game that's already insanely overpriced, and it's required to get a new one every year. GW is not starving for a paycheck. They are a publicly traded company, which leads to an issue of promising infinite growth despite that being actually impossible. So they throw fists at whoever runs even a slight risk of touching their profit ranges. Look at how often they tell fan creators to join or die. I mean, Astartes, for example. I hate the notion behind this. Hell, I hate how overpriced and temporary the rules are by their nature, making these books just a lost cost after only 6 months at most. But on to the next difference of the games. The phases are Hero Phase, Movement Phase, Shooting Phase, Charge Phase, Fight Phase, and End Phase. During the deployment step, there's a Terrain sub-step, which is when you'd put down your faction terrain. But the Hero Phase is when you'll cast manifestations and prayers to summon things, or buff allies and various other abilities. You'll roll a die in order to see if you can cast the spells in question. If it's a prayer, you can save the roll if you don't get high enough, allowing you to not need to roll as high on your next prayer. Manifestations must be used by the wizard keyword units, and each wizard has a number next to it, giving a number of summons it can make. Priest keywords allow prayers, and they have a similar number thing. Some factions don't have wizards, others don't have priests, but many and apparently most have both. Each faction has their own manifestations and prayers, but the manifestations require even more models. Most are really cool to look at, and some really do have some crazy ass jank abilities that I find funny. Shooting Phase is rather obvious, but most factions don't actually utilize it as ranged weapons are extremely rare in Age of Sigmar. Dwarves, cities, Skaven, and several others, they're the ones that have most of them. They're the heaviest in Order and Chaos factions. Of course, at the end of each round, you go back to step 1, right? No! Roll initiative again. If you went last in the last round and you won this roll, you can choose to take the initiative, allowing yourself to go first in the round. But if you do, you won't get to choose a battle formation, which we'll need to talk about too. But if you went first last round and you chose to go second for now, your opponent will still get the battle formation because you chose to give it to them. I don't like that little bit here, honestly, but I kind of understand it. But what's a battle formation? They're essentially secondary objectives, but you have to do them the round you take them, or you lose them. And you can choose which ones you take and when. Honestly, I like this, because it allows you to pick and choose and think tactically, rather than the random luck telling you to go fuck yourself if you've only got 2 units left alive and can't possibly destroy a character unit this round. Battle formations are also in the General's Handbook, so we go back to that hatred. Of course, there's some wording changes, there's no invulnerability saves, so a lot of things have wards, which as one of their keywords, which is a feel no pain ability. Armor penetration got renamed to rend, wounds to health, and you count up instead of down for health. Fly in AOS 4th edition lets you move directly over terrain, completely ignoring terrain and units in the way. I know there's a lot more I want to talk about, a lot of changes. Some I like, some I don't like. I need to actually play the game to give an absolute of like and don't like though. I will say that the changes to the wound system is probably more fair to the smaller and weaker units, but it makes me question the point of playing bigger units like the Ogor Maw tribes. But that's enough about that now. I'm going to sit in my shower with a can of Raid and a lighter. Shove off.